Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Aprili Syawalia. I'm from Department of English Education, employee class in 4th semester at PANCA SAKTI University, BEKASI. In this video, I'd like to explain about 3 principles to development of materials for the teaching of language. Let me share the material on PowerPoint. In terms of material development, we need to consider 2 key questions, namely, what should be provided for learners as materials and how to give them to learners. Materials designers may say that the key of material development is intuition or tacit knowledge, which they know what works and what won't work based on their experiences. Although this seems to be good for developing materials. Another point which need to be aware of is subjective, especially from conservative teachers who generally might not want to change. Therefore, it had better to listen to teachers and learners' voices to see what they are interested in and what are their opinions toward materials. All these 3 statements are basic principles of second language acquisition relevant to the development of material for teaching of language compiled by Brian Tomlinson. First, materials should achieve impact. And the second, materials should provide learners with opportunities to use target language to achieve communication process. And the last, materials should take into account that learners differ in learning styles. Okay, let's move. The first one is materials should achieve impact, which means they should have attractive presentation and appealing content to target learners. Impact is achieved when materials have a noticeable effect on learners. That is when the learner's curiosity, interest, and attention are attracted. If this is achieved, there is a better chance that some of the language in the material will be taken in for processing. Materials can achieve impact through first, novelty, for example, unusual topics, illustrations, and activities. Second, variety. For example, breaking up the monotony of a unit routine with an unexpected activity, using many different text types taken from many different types of sources, using a number of different instructor voice on a CD, and etc. And the third is attractive presentation. For example, use of attractive colors, lots of white space, use of photographs, etc. And the next, appealing content. For example, topics of interest to the target learners, topic which offer the possibility of learning something new, engaging stories, universal themes, local references. And the last, achievable challenge. For example, tasks which challenge the learners to think. One obvious point is that impact is variable. What achieves impact with a class in Brazil might not achieve the same impact with a class in Austria. And what achieves impact with 10 learners in a class might not achieve impact with the other 5. In order to maximize the likelihood of achieving impact, we need to know as much as possible about the target learners and about what is likely to attract their attention. In order to achieve impact with most of the learners, we also need to offer choice. The more varied the choice of topics, text, and activities, the more likely is the achievement of impact. Let's move to the second point. The second point is materials should provide learners with opportunities to use target language to achieve communication process. Learners should be given opportunities to use language for communication rather than just to practice it in situations controlled by the teacher and the materials. Using language for communication involves attempts to achieve a purpose in a situation in which the content, strategies, and expression of the interaction are determined by the learners. Communicative interaction can provide opportunities for picking up language for the new input generated, as well as opportunities for learner output to become an informative source of input. Interaction can be achieved through, first, information or opinion gap activities, which require learners to communicate with each other and or the teacher in order to close the gap. For example, finding out what food and drink people would like at the class party. The second, post-listening and post-reading activities, which require the learners to use information from the text to achieve a communicative purpose. For example, deciding what television programs to watch, discussing who to vote for, writing a review of a book or film. The third, creative writing and creative speaking activities such as writing a story or improvising a drama. And last, formal instruction given in the target language either on the language itself or on another subject. Its insistence that output is not just the product of language learning, but part of the process of language learning too. And my last point is, materials should take into account that learners differ in learning styles. Styles of learning which need to be catered for in language learning materials include visual, which is learners prefer to see the language written down. Auditory, which is learners prefer to hear the language. Kinesthetic, which is learners prefer to do something physical, such as following instruction for a game. Studial, which is learners like to pay conscious attention to the linguistic features of the language and want to be correct. Experiential, which is learners like to use the language and are more concerned with communication than with correctness. Analytic, which is learners prefer to focus on discrete bits of language and to learn them one by one. Global, which is learners are happy to respond to whole chunks of language at a time and to pick up from them whatever language they can. The next, dependent, which is learners prefer to learn from a teacher and from a book. And the last is independent, which is learners are happy to learn from their own experience of the language to use autonomous learning strategies. Learners' preference for a particular learning style is variable and depends, for example, on what is being learned, where it is being learned, whom it is being learned with, and what it is being learned for. The important point for materials developer is that they are aware of and cater for differences of preferred learning styles in their materials, and that they do not assume that all learners can benefit from the same approaches as the good language learner. So, that brings us to the end. Now, I'd like to thank you for taking time out to listen to my presentation, and I'd like to apologize if there is a mistake. I hope what I have shared will be beneficial for all of us. Also, I'd like be very interested to hear from you with your thoughts or questions. Please feel free to leave one in the comments below. And see you, and also have a nice day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.